The hashtag is very simple. It's called Ask Kamra. So urging all our viewers to immediately go to your social media handles, send us all your questions quickly, and we'll be taking a look at all of those as the day progresses. For now, over the next 10 minutes, Pranjal, we've put together a big slide on what is it that people really are looking at, right? 5 big changes that people want this budget. So let's quickly look at number 1, which is increasing the standard deduction. This is a long-standing demand every year. Every year we talk about it as well. One, of course, is going to be in the deduction allowed in the gross sort of salary income as well. Of course, it lowers the tax burden. We know about that. Salaried employees, we know 50,000 is allowed. But what exactly is the expectation this time?
See, I think this expectation is really justified for one reason, that if you're a self-employed professional or a businessman, any tools that you use, you actually get GST rebate on it and income tax benefit through depreciation on it. So if I use my mobile phone to actually record videos, it's my business tool and I get GST rebate and also depreciation on my phone. I don't know if you add that up, my phone to me is actually 50% cheaper. No such deductions are actually available to a salaried individual. Whereas a phone, if he or she buys on his own, is actually a tool through which he or she performs her job duties. So I think instead of providing separate brackets and deductions for each category, what the government has done for simplicity is they assume that a certain amount of your expenses are for your job and provide a flat deduction on it.
Yeah.
Now, if that deduction is 50,000 for an year, I think that's less, and the realistic...
Keeping the current climate in mind, keeping inflation, keeping cost of living in mind as well. So this is demand number 1 that has really come up.
That's right.
Remember, the government has invited lots of demands from people as well. They've been wanting to understand and inviting comments from people. Some 8,000 of them were actually that poured in, and we've sort of culled out the top 5 for you from that 8,000. So that's really looking at a larger picture there. Increase in 80C, 80D. Again, something that we've been talking about for a very long time. Here, what do you think is going to be like one key thing that the government can look at?
This is something that I have been listening to since I am tracking budget. So last a decade or so. But yeah, I mean, the expectation is that this could be increased by 50,000 to 1 lakh. So anywhere between 2 lakhs to 2.5 lakhs is the revised.
Yeah, currently 1.5 really. The expectation is it will go up to about 2.5 lakhs. So that's really what we are trying to look at. Again, a long-standing demand in that sector. Another key thing when it comes apart from 80C, 80D is also pension.
Oh, absolutely. This is something that I hope the government becomes more sensitive. Someone who has no active source of earning and is dependent actually on pensions, to be able to, to have this needs to go away. Really.
This needs to go away. We have barely minutes to understand whether or not it will happen. And then comes the all-important bit that everybody is talking about. Make the new tax regime more attractive. Now, this bit has been talked about so much, as we know our viewers as well. Just to recap there for you, the new tax regime actually came into being in 2020, but there have been very few takers for it. And we are going to take you through why that's happening, because it's a very interesting statistic. Let's go to the next slide here to understand that. So on paper, an individual earning about, say for example, 15 lakh per annum, in the old tax regime, the tax liability would have come down from this 15 to about 2 lakh 73. Now, if you take the new tax regime in mind, it actually comes down to 1 lakh 84,600. Now, no-brainer here, you would say, ye to kam ho raha hai, right? Like, why are there still no takers? There comes the tricky point, because here the catch is that there are a lot of exemptions under the old tax regime that you don't get in the new tax regime. For example,
optically, before we move on,
yeah,
I think it's important for people to remember these two figures, how this regime optically looks great. And I remember the feeling in 2020 when this was launched, that wow, such a good tax regime. And when the details came in is when you realize that, the villain is in the details actually. The devil is in the details.
The devil is in the details, and the details are right here. As you know, in the old tax regime, between 0 to 2 point, there is no tax. 2.5 to 5 lakh, it will come to about 12,500. An aggregate of all of this, you will end up paying this much. But there are deductions, and lots of them really. Reimbursements, children education and hostel allowance, standard deductions, professional tax. And also, there are deductions under 80C, 80D, 80E that we are talking about, which again the demand is to actually increase that further. that brings down the total to about 1,41,000. Keep that number in mind as we move to the next one now, guys. Okay, now under the new tax regime, it's pretty simple. You know the cuts there, they're slightly different here, and you see how that progresses. It comes down to 1,84,600. Now, what does this mean? Pranjal, you want to explain? 1,84,000 over here versus how it's coming to 1,41,000 plus over here.
Right. Also, you know, one important thing is that we are talking here on a salary of 15 lakhs. So it's not that the difference is only theoretical and no one would actually be able to reduce their tax liability. So if you have a CTC take home or something around 15 lakhs, you can actually take use of these deductions. So these are practical deductions that someone can actually benefit from. So if you are earning 15 lakhs, roughly 10% of it you can actually save. So this is practical. NPS, you can actually do, and health insurance you can. So this is out of your total salary, only 15% you're required to actually save, and you will end up with this. So this is pretty practical. This is not theoretical, which is why we have found that there are hardly any takers for the new regime and people prefer the older tax regime.
And that is why the demand is that if you want the new tax regime to get more attractive, essentially people who do not seek rebates, people who are not applying in, for a lot of them, it's essentially for them, it makes sense. But if there are to be more takers, it'll be interesting to see what FM says on this front, right?
Absolutely.
It's been, yeah. So let's move to the next one now, and which is increased basic exemption limit. Again, every year we talk about this. Will she do it? Will she not do it? What's your hunch?
And this hasn't been done since a long time.
Yeah.
So I hope this is done. I'm not expecting it to directly double.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting that. But 3.54 should happen.
Should happen, or hopefully will happen. We'll know in a couple of minutes. The other big, and this is an interesting one, and I want our viewers to sort of focus on that, right? Income tax exemption for startups. Now, this entire ecosystem has been in the talks for so long. Essentially, just to take you through some couple of pointers here. Now, tax exemption is available at the moment under 81AC to organizations that have earned the recognition of a startup. Meaning startups can claim a tax holiday up to 3 consecutive years within the 10 years of their establishment. But that means they also have to be registered with the government. How many of them are registered? The department has currently registered and recognized some 80,000 plus startups. So you'll say, great, right? We should be looking at more of this. Wait, there's a catch right here, because out of these 80,000, only 61,400 are registered on the whole. That means, and out of these 61,400, only 400 have IMB certificates, and that makes them an IMB. Lot of numbers, lot of certifications required, but this is the key, because this certification makes you eligible for the tax. This is on how many now, Ranjan?
And again, we saw that the starting figure is 80,000 and startups actually eligible are 400. So we are down to 0.5% of startups who can actually get it. You know, the problem is not that you need an additional certification. The problem is that this is very vague. So it's like it tells you to explain your business model, your projections. So it's theoretical. It's like an open-ended answer. If you change the requirement to some sort of fixed requirement, say you need to show 20% growth, you need to employ these many employees, your turnover should be this, a fixed parameter, and you know, there will be no vagueness and there will be no waste of efforts, because for these 400 startups to actually get that certification, I'm sure 40,000 startups have tried. So 39,600 startups' efforts have gone down the drain. They wouldn't have tried if they were not eligible.
This is coming from a personal
Very
space.
personal, very personal.
And this is what a lot of the entire startup ecosystem is also looking at.
This is what the ecosystem feels.
All right, so that's pretty much what we're expecting to get from the budget, or the Janta is basically expecting to get from the budget. I'm going to toss it back to Mahalakshmi to take you through what's happening latest in the markets.
Thank you so much, Sonal. We'll take a short break, and after we come back, a quick market check.
Talking about the most discussed topic as far as the budget expectations are concerned, which is the capital gains tax rationalization. Now, you've been in the business, Lakshmi, for a long time, and we know that